All right. Hello. If you don't know me, my name is Chrissy. I am the owner of CMG Health and Fitness, and I'm also the manager of the One Beacon Fitness Center in downtown Boston. I'm a certified exercise physiologist and nutrition coach. And today is going to be part one of a 5-part series about the pillars of fat loss. So part one we're going to be doing today is exercise. So the 5 pillars of fat loss, when it comes to fat loss success, and when I say fat loss, it's not the same as weight loss, but when people say that they want to lose weight or they want to tone, toning, that's what fat loss is. So fat loss is just a fancy word for toning. And in order to be successful with fat loss, you need to focus on five different pillars: exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress, and lifestyle. When these 5 pillars are equal, you'll find that you are more successful and you will reach your goals in a timely fashion. If you focus more on, let's say you just focus on exercise and nutrition, you could be super successful with those 2 pillars, but if you're not paying attention to the other 3, then you might be slower in reaching your goals and you won't necessarily have as much success as you would if you were focusing on all 5. So we're going to start with talking about exercise today. So I am certified through the American College of Sports Medicine. So everything that I talk about is going to be based on these recommendations from the ACSM. So the recommendations, they talk about 4 types of exercise. And similar to how your pillars should be equal, the 4 types of exercise that I'm going to explain in a minute, you should be doing all 4 of them equally in order to be successful with your exercise pillar. So we have cardiorespiratory exercise, which is important for heart health, at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week. Resistance exercise, that is strength training. So training each major muscle group 2 to 3 days per week using a variety of exercises and equipment. Flexibility exercise, so that is like stretching, that sort of thing. Performing those 2 to 3 days per week to improve and maintain your range of motion. Lastly, neuromotor exercise, which is also known as functional fitness training. So using your motor skills like balance, gait training, activities of daily living, that sort of thing, 2 to 3 days per week. So we're going to dive into each one of these different types of exercises now. So cardiorespiratory exercise. So 150 minutes per week, that can be broken down into 30 to 60 minutes of moderate intensity exercise 5 days per week, or 20 to 60 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise 3 days per week. So how do you determine the difference between moderate and vigorous? Moderate, that's a heart rate between 60 and 70% of your max, and vigorous would be closer to 80-85% of your max. So what we're going to do right now, in order to find your max heart rate, I want you to take 220 and subtract your age. So 220 minus your age, I'm 30 years old, so that would be 190 for me. That is my maximum heart rate. So 190, that's a heart rate that I don't want to stay there ever. That is bad. You never want to stay in your maximum heart rate for an extended period of time. It just puts too much stress on the heart and it can be dangerous. So if I were to do, let's say my moderate, 60 to 70% of my max would be between 114 and 133 beats per minute. That would be my moderate range. For my vigorous range, that would be 133 to 152, and that's more of the range in my vigorous range. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to stay within those numbers. Everyone's different. Everyone's heart is going to work differently and respond differently to exercise. So, for example, I did a kickboxing class last week, and my heart rate stayed pretty much in the 180s the whole time. I did hit 190 briefly, and when I saw that I was at that heart rate, I rested, I took a minute, and I brought myself back down. I use my Fitbit to monitor my heart rate. You can wear a heart rate monitor when you exercise. This is not always accurate. Heart rate monitors that go around your chest would be the most accurate way. You can also just take it yourself, measure it on your own. But trying to keep your heart rate, between a certain range will help you kind of figure out if you're doing moderate exercise or vigorous. So you can do a continuous session of 150 minutes all at once. I don't know why anyone would want to do that. So either one continuous session or multiple shorter sessions of at least 10 minutes. Both options are acceptable for getting your recommended amount of cardiorespiratory exercise in for the week. You always want to choose a type of cardio that you actually enjoy doing. Whether it's running, walking, biking, spinning, hiking, rowing, dancing, anything that raises your heart rate at least to that moderate level counts as cardio exercise. You do not have to run if you don't like it. I hate running. I never do it. I like to go on walks. I like to bike. I like to hike. Like I said, I like to do kickboxing. So all of that counts for me personally as cardiorespiratory exercise. So you don't have to do something you hate just to kind of fill this quota. All right, we're going to move on to resistance exercise. And if you guys have any questions at any point, feel free to pop in. You can unmute yourself. I'm also going to take questions at the end as well if you just want to save it for then. All right, resistance exercise. So this is strength training, like I mentioned. You always want to train all your major muscle groups, so all the muscles of the legs, around the hip area, glutes, hip flexors, the low back, basically your entire lower body, and then your entire upper body, so the chest, shoulders, arms, back, and of course your core. There's no right or wrong way to strength train, and honestly, I can do a whole separate presentation just on strength training alone. So I'm just going to keep it simple for now. You should use a variety of movements and equipment to progressively overload your muscles. So progressive overload, that's a very important principle of strength training. And what that means is slowly over time increasing the demand on your musculoskeletal system to continually make gains in muscle size, muscle strength, and muscle endurance. So basically, in order to get stronger, in order to get bigger muscles, in order to increase your muscle endurance, you have to make your muscles work harder each time you do a workout. So, for example, let's use bicep curls as an example. So the first week, let's say you do bicep curls in 2 of your workouts in 1 week. And let's say you start at using 5 pounds for those first 2 workouts. The next week, maybe do the first workout with 5 pounds again, and then increase it to 8 pounds or 10 pounds. So you're going to slowly, and this goes for any exercise that you do that has added resistance to it, you're always going to want to slowly increase the weight that you use over time. And that's how you get stronger. That's how your muscles get bigger. That's how your muscles get have more endurance. And, maybe your goal is not muscle growth, which is hypertrophy. And if you look at the chart to the right over here, this is sort of a very basic layout of how you would choose your sets, your reps, and your weight based on your goals. Again, everyone's different and this might not work for you, but if your goal is muscle hypertrophy, which is increasing your muscle size, you're going to want to stick to 3 to 4 sets in the 8 to 12 rep range with a weight that you can do to failure. So when you relate that to progressive overload, if you can do 12 bicep curls and it's easy and you feel like you could keep going after you hit 12, the weight's too light. That at that point is when you would say, okay, I need to increase my weight. So if your goal is muscle strength, 2 to 3 sets in the 1 to 6 rep range, and you're going to want to use heavy weight, but not to failure. So relating that to progressive overload, let's say you're doing squats, back squat with the weight on your back. If you can do 6 reps and you're feeling good, you're feeling like it wasn't really that hard, it was pretty easy, and you increase it, but then if you are trying to do 6 reps and you can only get 4 reps out of it, you increased it too much. So it's all about finding that sweet spot where it's not super easy, but it's not to failure. And then you would progressively increase the weight from there. Now, muscle endurance is a little bit different because you're doing much more reps, so 15 plus rep range, more sets, and using a much lighter load. That's how you get your muscles to become have more endurance to them. You are never going to failure if you're training for muscle endurance, and you are always, thinking, okay, I can do 15 here, maybe I just increase the weight a little bit, but not as much as you would if your goal was hypertrophy or strength. So a very basic overview of resistance exercise. Progressive overload is always the main thing that you want to do. And then setting up your workouts, that depends on what your goal is. And like I said, everyone's different. Everyone has different goals. Everyone has different bodies. There's no right or wrong way to do this. But if you're confused and you don't really know where to start, that's where a trainer, someone like me, would come in handy. All right, so flexibility exercise. Flexibility is very important for maintaining and improving your range of motion. Range of motion is essential for healthy muscles, healthy bones, and especially for injury prevention as we get older. You always want to make sure to include at least these 2 types of stretches, dynamic and static. Dynamic stretching involves movement through the stretches. So if you are doing dynamic stretching for the quadriceps, the front of your thigh, that would be something like butt kicks. So like the first picture of the guy, first picture on the first row, and also the last picture on the last row, of both the guy and the girl, they're doing this quad stretch. So doing butt kicks, actively moving through that quad stretch, that would be an example of dynamic stretching. High knees, straight leg kicks forward, arm circles, those are all examples of dynamic stretching. Static stretching would be placing a certain muscle or a muscle group in a position that it can be extended for a certain amount of time. So these pictures that you're seeing on the screen, those are all examples of static stretching. You are going to hold a stretch for 10 to 20 seconds and just focus on the extension of the muscle that you're stretching. So the quad stretch that you see the guy doing, the hip flexor stretch right next to him, doing like a hamstring stretch, so with your legs out in front of you, reaching to your toes. Those are all examples of static stretching. So every fitness professional is different when it comes to what they think is more important. Me personally, dynamic stretching happens at the beginning of a workout. Static stretching happens at the end of a workout. Why is that? So at the beginning of a workout, your muscles are still cold. They've not warmed up yet. They have not done anything. Using dynamic stretching warms them up, gets them ready to work, and you're less likely to injure yourself than you are doing a static stretch with cold muscles. Static stretching I do at the end of my workouts after your muscles are warmed up. They have just done a workout, they worked hard, and they're warm and they're more pliable. So you'll get more out of that stretch when your muscles are already warm. I grew up as a dancer, and too many times I've seen, people stretching completely cold, and then they end up pulling a muscle or, rupturing something because they overstretched with a cold muscle and it wasn't ready for it. So that's why me personally, I do static stretching at the end when your muscles are already warm. Important to never overstretch. So you should feel like a little bit of pressure as you're doing your stretches, but if you start feeling pain, that's when you want to ease off. That's when you're overstretching. Stretching should never be painful. I think it feels good, but again, everyone's different. It should feel like you're helping your body rather than hurting your body. And then the other thing, never bounce in your stretches. So that's something that I guess I'm not really recently, but over the past couple years, research has come out that says never bounce in your stretches, because that when you bounce, you are quickly shortening and then quickly lengthening that muscle, and that sets you up for injury. Similar to, like I said, with static stretching, cold muscles, like doing bouncing in your stretches, that's just shortening and lengthening too quickly. Okay. All right, neuromotor exercise. So this type of exercise is not something that everyone does on a regular basis, myself included. So this is also known as functional fitness training, and it prepares you for ADLs, which stands for activities of daily living, and helps to prevent falls and injuries as we age. So there's a couple different things that are included in neuromotor exercise. Motor skills, so training balance, training coordination, agility, gait, so that gait means walking. Training all of those sorts of things, those are your motor skills. Proprioceptive training, that is training on unstable surfaces. So that means, you can see in the pictures here, using like a thick mat or a balance ball, a Bosu ball, using those to train your proprioceptive muscles to be able to balance on any type of surface. And then multifaceted activities like yoga and Pilates, that means activities that are both works on flexibility, works on strength training. Putting those two together in an activity such as yoga, such as Pilates. 20 to 30 minutes a day is a good place to start with this. I've worked with a lot of people who are a little bit older. I worked in a senior center for a long time. Just doing at the end of our workouts 5 minutes of balance training over like a month, 2 to 3 times per week, I saw results after just 4 weeks of that. So you might not think that this is something you need right now, but if you start it now, it will pay off in the future. You never want to be in a situation where your balance is off or you are unstable on your feet. That's not a good situation to ever be in. So adding this to your routine is definitely something you want to consider doing. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a huge part of your day. You wake up in the morning, balance on one foot while you're brushing your teeth, switch feet, midday when you're making your lunch, do a balance on either foot. And then before you go to bed, same thing, brushing your teeth at night, balance on one foot, and then switch. It's not that hard to quickly add this to your day. It doesn't even have to be during your regular gym workouts. It can just be, like I said, at home, sometime during your day. If you're at a desk, like stand up, balance for a minute on the other side. So easy to add to your day, but definitely very, very important to add neuromotor exercise to your routines. All right, so what I want you to do now is think about your normal exercise routine. What do you normally do during the day for exercise? Answer the following questions. Are you achieving the recommended amount of exercise each week? Yes or no? And if yes, that's great. If no, try to think about how much exercise you do during the week, and see where you can add a little bit more, maybe. Are there any forms of exercise that you're currently missing? So remember, we talked about 4 forms: cardio exercise, resistance, strength training exercise, flexibility, and then the neuromotor. So take your exercise routine, look at it as a whole, and what is missing from your routine. So I'll use myself as an example. I do strength training 3 times a week. I do cardiorespiratory exercise 3 to 4 times per week. Flexibility is iffy for me. I do stretch before and after I work out, but it's very quick and definitely something that I could improve on. And neuromotor exercise is not something that I do at all. So that is something that I need to add to my personal routine. And how am I going to do that? Question number 3, how can you add the missing pieces to your routine? For me, I'm going to try to do some more yoga. I usually do like maybe 1 per week if I remember to do it. I can add yoga. I can add balance exercises. I can do some unstable surface training. All of those things I can easily add to my routine. So if you have a piece of paper in front of you, just jot down some thoughts on these questions, and I'm not going to ask you to share, but just think about it on your own. Think about what you're currently doing, what's missing, and then how you can fill in the blanks. Give you guys a minute here. All right, so just a couple more things that are important to remember. Exercise should be fun, and you should enjoy doing it. It shouldn't feel like a chore that you have to get done. If it does feel like a chore, you're doing the wrong thing. I mentioned earlier that I hate running, so I never do it. If you're doing a routine or a class or even certain exercises that you absolutely hate, and every time you see it on your schedule, you're like, ugh, I can't believe I have to do that right now, get rid of it. It's not worth feeling like it's a chore when it's something that you have to do to stay healthy, and so you should have fun doing it. There are many different ways to exercise, both inside of a regular gym setting and outside of a regular gym setting. If you're the type of person who doesn't like to go to the gym, you don't have to go to the gym. You can do your exercise, outdoors, going on a hike, taking a bike ride, doing yoga at home. There are many, many ways for you to be healthy and get your exercise in without going to a gym. And I know what you're thinking, that you need a gym for the strength training and the resistance. Not necessarily. And I think that the current state of events has really opened people's eyes to the fact that I don't necessarily need a fancy gym outfitted with high-end equipment to get a good workout in. You can get a great strength training workout in with a set of dumbbells, a set of bands, even just with body weight, you can do strength training, which is, that's a whole other presentation, but it can be done. You do not need a full fancy outfitted gym at all. And find ways that you personally enjoy. Don't feel like you have to copy someone else. There's so many things on social media that says, you have to train this way, or you have to train this way, or maybe you follow some people on social media and you see how they're training and you see them having success with that type of training. that doesn't mean that you'll have the same success. We're all different and we all have different needs. I think that's why social media can be a little bit dangerous at times. You know, you see fitness people looking like absolutely incredible, so you buy their workout programs, but then you don't get the same results. Well, you don't have the same body as them. You don't have the same genetic makeup as them. So obviously you're going to get different results than they are. So find something you like doing. Don't feel like you need to copy someone else or follow someone else's program. Your program should be as unique as you are. All right. Any questions at all? Anyone want to ask or add anything?